On being anywhere else in the world right now? Seriously? With everything going on? You were going to go somewhere else to find out what the news is? To get some commentary about it? How dare you? No, I know you wouldn't do that to me because I wouldn't do that to you. Why? Because it's Saturday morning, and that means Front Porch Brunch. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. Welcome back to our weekly gathering when we discuss news and things going on. And boy, has it been a week, both domestically and international. Man, too much to talk about. Got a bunch of stuff lined up to get into, mostly revolving around the two big news stories of the week that have been going on here in America and around the world. And it involves everybody right now. So we're going to give a minute or two for everybody to start slipping into the room. We are on YouTube. We are on Rumble. We are on Twitter. Yes, the Blue Birdie. I don't care if Elon calls it X. We are still going to call it Twitter, as we have always known it to be. He might own it, but we use it. Therefore, we get to decide what it gets called. So, again, if you just happen to be stopping by right now, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. Welcome to Front Porch Brunch. We are glad to have you here. Looking forward to seeing everybody pop into the room. Excuse me while I sip some tea for just a moment. My goodness, what a morning. So, looking forward to having everybody here. We'll have our usual cast of characters stop by, and you never know who else is going to drop in. So, if you happen to be watching this out there and whatever, say hello. Drop something in chat, be it on Rumble or be it on Twitter or YouTube. And let me tell you something. My YouTube people, they're very chatty. My Rumble people, I love you, but y'all are the biggest bunch of lurkers I think I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I promise you, we do not bite. Really. We really don't. Contrary to whatever rumors that you have read scribbled on bathroom walls anywhere all around the world, okay? We don't do that sort of thing. So, drop some comments on Rumble, drop some comments on Twitter. We're glad to have you. It's Saturday morning. What's the weather like where I'm at? It's the best way to describe it. For the middle of October, it is warm but cloudy. We had some rain this morning. There's my favorite advertiser. Mwah. Tell me, I saw the picture of the Bloody Mary, so I know you got that thing mixed, girl. You're a sipping and sudsing. Daggone you, I love you. Glad you are so here. Oh, let's see who else is going to stop by. We don't know who all is going to drop in yet, so we'll see. It has been a wild week for news. Gosh. Oh, by the way, Leanne, who are the Keydets playing this week? Just drop in chat. Good morning. Well, daggone it. Now, there's somebody on Rumble who is definitely never quiet. Good morning, Brentley. How are you doing, sir? I just saw a message over there from the Dangerous Rhetoric podcast. By the way, folks, going to help a brother out here. He's got a live stream going tonight at 8 p.m. on Rumble, the Dangerous Rhetoric podcast. Please go over there tonight and check him out. He is definitely a good dude, always bringing the truth, always giving you information. So check out the gang at Dangerous Rhetoric podcast. They're going to be on Rumble tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. So please, by all means, go check them out. So yes. Oh, man. Brentley says, I'm dead. I've been hauling wood all morning to the wood chipper. Well, okay. Dude, now that is a workout. Hey, now, Brentley, you know that I'm going to give a shout out to anybody I can to help them out, dude. So, yes, he says, oh, my God, all this love. I'm flattered. Dude, you're worth every damn good and kind word. You truly are. So, yeah, we're glad to have you here this morning. And to Aunt Leanne's, yeah, don't fall in the wood chipper, by the way. Some comments from your friends over on YouTube. Don't you be falling in that wood chipper now. We love you. Don't you get hurt. And to answer the question that I put to Leanne about who VMI is playing in football, the Citadel. Oh, do I have old memories of playing those cats back when my boys were in the old Southern Conference. So yes, I do know of which you speak. So yeah, I got people on Rumble. I got people on YouTube. I got people out there watching on Twitter. So it's all good. I know everybody's been doing it, but send it out to your friends, your mothers, your brothers, your lovers, your sisters, and your misters. Tell them to get their butts in here, because gosh, we got a lot to talk about this morning. Oh, yes. Oh, you're back in the old okay, the reconstituted Southern Conference now. Okay, cool. I used to love those rivalries back in the day when Marshall University used to play in the Southern Conference up until about the mid '90s. Man, those were some great old rivalries. VMI, Furman, the Citadel. Oh gosh, Davidson. Gosh, great football. So yeah, a lot of stories, a lot of memories. So yeah, good times, good times. Oh, well, good luck. I wish you good. I wish the cadets good luck. So just saying, sorry, Brentley. I know we're talking football and we love you, dude. So just, we love you. But yeah, lots to talk about in the news this morning. So, like I say, send it out to your friends, send it out to everybody that you know. We're going to get into our first story, and this deals more with Matters International, and it's more or less an update about what's been going on up to this moment, as much as I can gather it in, about what's going on in Israel as it relates to the war. Um, I'm not sure if Brentley has a football team, to be honest with you. Hey, Brentley, we kind of have a tradition here on the front porch in the fall. If you are a college football fan, um, or even if you're not a college football fan, if you're a pro football fan, if you've got a team, particularly if it's today, it's Saturday, which is kind of like college football day. If you got a team, uh, no, LOL, no, I don't give a F about sports. Okay, well, fair enough. All right, well, never mind then. All right, but we want to make sure you're included. That's why you were asked. So, and by the way, why don't you scramble me some eggs while you're at it, daggone it, since you're cooking breakfast? I'll get up there at some point and get them from you. They'll probably be rotted and green by the time I arrive, but yeah, you never know. But anyway, Israel, things that are going on. Want to give you guys as much up-to-date information as I possibly can, and I've been trying to cull things together this morning for some type of presentation purposes. The biggest news right now is a couple or three different things, so we'll start from there. This is from the Associated Press. Palestinians scramble to flee south in Gaza as Israel urges a mass evacuation and conducts raids. So we'll start from there and we'll read a little bit into this headline. Article written by Joseph Krause and Waha Shirafara. And please, I know I'm butchering pronunciation, so just look over me. I am from West Virginia. In the Gaza Strip, Palestinians scrambled to flee northern Gaza on Saturday after the Israeli military ordered nearly half the population to evacuate south and carried out limited ground forays ahead of an expected land offensive a week after Hamas's bloody, wide-ranging attack into Israel. Israel renewed calls on social media and in leaflet dropped from the air for some 1 million Gaza residents to move south, while Hamas urged people to stay in their homes, which we'll come back to that little jag of a comment here in a minute, so hang on to that one. The UN and aid groups have said such a rapid exodus would cause untold human suffering, with hospital patients and others unable to relocate. Families in cars, trucks, and donkey carts packed with possessions crowded a main road heading away from Gaza City as Israeli airstrikes continue to hammer the 40-kilometer or 25-mile-long territory where supplies of food and fuel and drinking water were running low because of a complete Israeli siege. Now, 25 miles. Now, just to give you an idea, folks, of what that looks like, take a look at this. I was going to save this for a little bit later, but I mean, it kind of becomes very relevant right now. This is the Gaza Strip, a 25-mile area from here down to the Egyptian border. That's how much land we're talking about. 25 miles. If you're driving in a car and you blink real fast, you might not realize you've gone in and out of it. And it currently houses, as I've heard estimates, upwards of about 2 million people. And 1 million of them are being asked, follow the pointer. Here's Gaza City right here. They're being asked to evacuate down to here. Now, this sets up some very interesting things that are going on behind the scenes and outwardly, because I got some other news items to report. One other thing as it relates to the Associated Press, and this is just for your personal information. Everybody has their respective sources of where they get information for news, and I'm not disparaging anybody's choices that they make. But if you're wanting some kind of an up-to-date running thing, the AP is doing a live, basically a live update. Literally, whenever the Associated Press posts a story, they're running it on their website. It's and it's apnews.com, so it's real easy to get to. But literally, they've got up-to-date stories. I mean, the last thing they posted was 37 minutes ago. Hezbollah TV reports exchange of fire with Israeli troops. Hezbollah's TV station has reported an intense exchange of fire along Lebanon's border with Israeli positions in a disputed area along the border with Syria, Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Now, to kind of go back to our map, if you're wondering where they're talking about, because sometimes all this sort of meshes together, let me take you up north. And this will kind of give you an idea. Let me show you this real quick. We're probably, if I had to guess, probably talking somewhere in this area right in through here. Let me see if I can find the actual. Here it is. Here it is. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, here's the border to Lebanon right here. So we're probably talking somewhere this area, if I had to guess, without any more information. But my point being, if you're wanting an updated listing of information, or at least stories about what's going on, AP News is probably one of your best places to go. And Leanne asks a really good question as we get started into this, and that is there a deserted island somewhere where we can relocate these people? That's a good question. And tell you what, just for the sake of discussion, we'll go back to the map. And I'm going to see if I can zoom that in even closer than what I've got it. If there are islands off the Gaza Strip, at least on this map anyway, it's not really listed. It's more or less the land and the sea. Like I say, there might be some small islands here, but I don't know if it'd be enough to house, however many people we're talking about here. So I don't know. I don't know that there's a good way to do it. But it's kind of interesting you bring up that question because it kind of leads into something else, but we'll get to it in just a second. Some other pieces of information that I've been able to cull together real fast before we came on. And this one literally was just reported a little while ago. I want to take it to Fox News. Israel gives Palestinian citizens deadline to flee Gaza as troops amass on the border. Hamas is urging Palestinians in northern Gaza to defy the evacuation orders and remain in the region for the invasion. Now, it's not so much that headline that I want to bring to your attention. It's a little bit further into this story because there's news that's coming out that the Israeli Defense Forces have killed a leader of Hamas. And the headline goes like this: IAF said a drone strike killed Ali Quadhi, a company commander in the Najaba force of Hamas, after obtaining intelligence from the Shin Bet security agency. So, according to Israel, they've taken out a leader of Hamas in airstrikes already, and they haven't even done a formal invasion of the Gaza Strip. Some other news that I was able to put together, and this has more to do with the casualty count than anything else. This is from CBS News. Again, their headline is talking about residents of the Gaza Strip getting out as quickly as they possibly can. I want to go to, here we go. Israel's military says Hamas attack and ongoing rocket fire from Gaza had killed more than 1,300 people and left at least 3,200 wounded as of Friday. That's on the Israeli side. At least 27 Americans are known to be among the dead. In Gaza, the health ministry said Saturday that Israeli airstrikes had killed at least 2,215 people, including 724 children, and had left more than 8,700 wounded. So let me do some fast math here. That's what? Close to 12,000 wounded, and on both sides, almost 3,500 dead. Truly a absolutely horrible, horrible situation. Now, Leanne asked a question, and I want to kind of get to this because this gets to be, to me, fairly interesting. Is there nowhere where they can be relocated? Well, you got to start thinking to yourself, okay, 2 million people in the Gaza Strip, 1 million of them are living in Gaza City. They got to go somewhere. Well, wouldn't the natural inclination be, well, what about Egypt? Egypt is 25 miles, it's right on the border of the Gaza Strip. Well, I got some bad news for everybody. If the plan is to move them down to Egypt, that's not going to happen. And the reason being, headline from Breitbart, Egypt's Sisi refuses to take in Palestinians, quote, must remain in their land. Article written by Francis Martel. Egyptian strongman Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, reportedly speaking at a military graduation on Thursday, urged residents of Gaza to, quote, remain on their land rather than attempt to relocate away from the violence of the jihadist terrorist group Hamas and any potential retaliation from the Israeli government. Sisi's regime shut its border with Gaza on Tuesday after the Israeli government suggested that those seeking to flee Hamas should consider relocating to fellow Muslim Arab countries. While many Arabs and others in the Middle East enthusiastically support many of Hamas's demands, primarily the creation of a state of, quote, Palestine carved out of Israel, their governments have been hesitant to assist Palestinians in evacuating war-torn areas. Some Egyptians, speaking to the Emirati newspaper The National this week, complained that their country had already had enough refugees, and while they support the eradication of Israel, they would prefer not to take the Palestinians into their country. Oh, yeah, and Leanne, you beat me to it, dear. And I was just going to comment on this. No countries will take them. Now, being the ever intelligent and astute observer of all things in the world that she is, Leanne brings up a very good point about the Arab world and the Palestinians because they have a very historically unique relationship. And I say it's a unique relationship because when I say that word, you would think to yourself, well, you know what that means. Those Arabs are gonna back up their brothers in occupied Israel. Oh no, 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 no. Quite the opposite. There's what you say, and then there's what you do. What am I getting at? In Arab countries around the world, be it Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, etc., they will support the Palestinians and they will support their idea of wanting to have their own independent country inside of Israel. And that's about as far as it goes. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, Iran is notorious for funneling money to Hamas. Notice I didn't say the Palestinian people, I said Hamas. But the bigger problem is nobody wants the Palestinians. Oh, you mean the Israelis don't want? No, 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 no. That's not what I'm talking about. The Arab world doesn't want the Palestinians. When I say unique history, what I'm getting to is this. Be it Jordan, which kicked them out, by the way, be it Syria, be it Lebanon, be it Egypt, they don't want the Palestinians there. Now, we can sit here and argue whether that's right or wrong. We can sit here and discuss the historical reasons for that. But the fact of the matter is, they don't want them. I mean, the Egyptians are flat out saying it. Would you just stay right up there in the Gaza Strip? Okay. You just stay right up there. We don't want you. And like I said, years ago, the Jordanians kicked them out. That's how bad it was. They don't want them, you know. And for all that is said right now, and there's a lot of vitriol on both sides. Don't get me wrong. There's emotion everywhere in all of this. But I feel sorry for the Palestinian people themselves. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't say I felt sorry for Hamas. Okay, I'm just talking about normal Palestinian people. They're just trying to live their lives, raise their families, you know, live in peace as much as they possibly can. They don't want this. But everything that's happened over the years and decades up to now is so bad, no other Arab nation wants them. Yeah, and Leanne, I think you bring up a valid point. Known terrorists in their country. No one wants them besides. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we'll get into that a little bit later, dear. Hang on to that thought. But yeah, the Arab world will sit there and say, oh, no, the Palestinians deserve their own country. How dare Israel do all these evil things to the Palestinians? And on the other hand, they won't let them inside their own borders, which sort of makes you beg the question, why? I mean, I think Leanne's point's valid, and I think other people are expressing it the same way. Why would you let troublemaking inside your own borders? Just saying. And by the way, this whole thing about, Hamas telling their own citizens of the Gaza Strip, stay where you are. I'm going to say something, and do I have proof to back this up? No, but I'm just using what I think is my common sense. Why do I get the bad feeling that Hamas is telling people, Palestinians, to stay in Gaza City and not evacuate because they want the casualties? Let me say that again. Why do I have the bad feeling that Hamas is telling the Palestinians inside the Gaza Strip, stay where you are, in the hopes that the body count gets high enough and they can use that for propaganda purposes, which ought to give everybody some kind of idea of what kind of monsters the Israelis are having to deal with. They are taught to kill Jews. You might be right. I mean, you may be absolutely right. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I am the fount of all wisdom on this question. Believe me, I step into this one with a lot of trepidation. Because, and you're right. I mean, I think your point's valid, Leanne. I think that, guys like me kind of look at this through a set of lenses and value systems and try to somehow make that apply to this situation, and it may not apply at all. But what's going on over there is absolutely horrible. And there's one more point I'll bring up, and this has to do more with a question of military strategy. And again, I give the caveat up front, I could be absolutely dead wrong about this one. Okay? Absolutely dead wrong. Headline for you. This is from Yahoo News. USS Gerald R. Ford has arrived in the Mediterranean to support Israel. Here's what it can do. Article by Dylan Stableford. The United States this week dispatched a group of warships, including the USS Gerald Ford, to support Israel during the brutal attacks by Hamas militants. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced Sunday that the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, that includes the namesake aircraft carrier, the guided missile cruiser USS Normandy, and 4 guided missile destroyers, the Thomas Hudner, the Rampage, the Rummage, Carney, and Roosevelt, would be headed to the eastern Mediterranean Sea. Quote, strengthening our joint force posture in addition to the material support that we will rapidly provide to Israel underscores the United States' ironclad support for the Israeli Defense Forces and the Israeli people, Austin said in a statement. My team and I will continue to be in close contact with our Israeli counterparts to ensure that they have what they need to protect their citizens and defend themselves against these heinous terrorist attacks. Now, I bring up this little piece of news because I think, and I'm saying this up front, I could be dead wrong about what I'm about to say next. But I get the distinct feeling that the following is about to happen. We know that the Gerald R. Ford strike group is somewhere in the Eastern Mediterranean. We don't know where exactly. We just know they're there. Why do I get the funny feeling the U.S. is going to seal off Gaza by way of the sea? The Egyptians have already said they're closing their border to the Palestinians coming out of the Gaza Strip. So the Egyptians are enforcing their border on the south. So to the south, you got the Egyptians closing off their border. You've got the U.S. with a strike group out here in the Mediterranean Sea, somewhere. We don't know where exactly, but close enough. I've got a feeling close enough that they could get to the Gaza, planes could get to the Gaza Strip in a hurry if they had to, or the destroyers. So you've got the U.S. out here in the Mediterranean, you've got the Egyptians sealing off their border, and the rest of it is the Israeli army, conscripted about 300,000 by all reports. They basically are sealed in. The Palestinians, they might be able to move around. Whoa. Where'd you go? Back up there. How dare you? Get over there. Don't do that to me. I'm broadcasting, don't you know? First boomer of the morning. There you go, folks. Well, why do I have the feeling that basically the Palestinians might be able to move around inside this 25-mile strip? And that's about as far as they're going to move. If they try to escape by way of the sea, particularly I'm thinking Hamas, okay, the U.S. might be willing to do something about that. If they try to get away to the south, the Egyptians won't have anything to do with them. And if Hamas tries to get away to the east, they're going right into the waiting arms of the Israelis. Just saying. Did anyone find out where the ships come from? The latter was Norfolk, which was scheduled. I don't know for sure. I don't know if I think I read, and again I say this with reservation. I think I read a report that the Gerald R. Ford was dispatched out of Norfolk. And again, I could be dead wrong about that, but I swear I keep thinking I've read that. But that's what I know so far to this point. So that's the latest updated news coming out of Israel related to all this. So it is already almost 11 o'clock in the morning. My name is Brian Trippett. This is Front Porch Brunch. We're talking about some stories going on in the world, international and domestic. Obviously, the biggest story internationally right now is what's going on in Israel with Hamas. And, okay. I'm not sure I want to put the Palestinian people down there, but I wouldn't mind putting some of Hamas in that joint. Just saying. Of course, we could have let Hamas out there with some of the way things are going right now. But anyway, so that's what's going on in Israel, at least as much as I can pull together up to the minute. And we've got some folks here already. We've got Leanne. We've got Brentley. Brentley's, it's French toast and bacon. Ooh, yummy. That sounds good. That sounds really good. If I ever come up there for a visit, we ought to get in the kitchen and make biscuits and gravy. Give you some southern cooking, or at least I will anyway. Now, as far as what's going on in the U.S. as it relates to what's going on in Israel, I'm going to play you a speech, or at least part of it anyway, given by President Joe Biden. This was about 4 days ago. And, everybody can say what they want to about Biden, and believe me, we will. God, believe me, we're going to say everything that you can possibly say about Biden. But this has to be one of the most measuredly appropriate speeches I think I've ever heard Biden give that I actually agreed with him on. So I'm going to play this. It's 2 minutes. I might stop it. I'm not sure and interject, but if I don't, well, we'll just let it run. But I think this is worth listening to. Folks, do me a favor and take a listen to this.
You know, there are moments in this life, and I mean this literally, when the pure, unadulterated evil is unleashed on this world. The people of Israel lived through one such moment this weekend. The bloody hands of the terrorist organization Hamas, a group whose stated purpose for being is to kill Jews. This was an act of sheer evil. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered in Israel. Among them, at least 14 American citizens killed. Parents butchered using their bodies to try to protect their children. Stomach-turning reports of babies being killed. Entire families slain. Young people massacred while attending a musical festival to celebrate peace. Women raped, assaulted, paraded as trophies. Families hid their fear for hours and hours, desperately trying to keep their children quiet to avoid drawing attention. And thousands of wounded, alive but carrying with them the bullet holes and the shrapnel wounds and the memory of what they endured. You all know these traumas never go away. There's still so many families desperately waiting to hear the fate of their loved ones, not knowing if they're alive or dead or hostages. Infants in their mother's arms, grandparents in wheelchairs, Holocaust survivors abducted and held hostage. Hostages whom Hamas has now threatened to execute in violation of every code of human morality. It's abhorrent. The brutality of Hamas, these bloodthirstiness brings to mind the worst rampages of ISIS. This is terrorism.
Okay. By and large, thought it was a pretty good speech. I mean, everybody knows where I stand on Joe Biden, and if you don't, I'll be happy to tell you. But honestly, I mean, again, that's not the whole speech, obviously. But I can't disagree with a thing he said. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Projected strength, and unfortunately, that strength probably went out the window when he fell. Yeah, well, you know. And Brentley, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to ruin your breakfast, buddy. I'm sorry, but you know, gotta bring it when I see it. You know, yeah, I might be enough to turn my stomach too. But anyway, yeah, your point's taken. Brentley's hanging out over on Rumble, by the way, folks. If you happen to be over there and you see him, say hello to him. Leanne's here with me on YouTube, and everybody else is watching on Twitter. At least you better be watching on Twitter. Daggone you. But no, getting back to seriously, that's probably, honestly, one of the best speeches I've heard Biden give in a long time on any subject. And frankly, I think it's appropriate to what's going on. Absolutely appropriate. At the time he gave that speech, I mean, obviously the numbers are different now. The number of dead. There are, as it stands right now, as I understand it, there are 14 Americans dead, and a number of them are being held hostage. I think the number that I last saw was 25. And, oh gosh, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm scared to death for a lot of reasons about this whole situation. And I mean, there's a million and one fears that either I could have, or you could have, or everybody in the world has for one reason or another. But let me get personal here and kind of explain where I'm coming from in this. I mentioned the American hostages currently being held by Hamas. And like I said, the number that I've heard is upwards of around 25. Okay. And there is a story out on Breitbart where the president has been in contact with families right now who are trying to find out what's going on with their loved ones. The reason that I am fearful, at least on this aspect of it, is you've heard the old expression that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes a lot. Well, I'm just old enough to remember the Iranian hostage crisis. Now, Brentley, this is before you were born, so or close to it. So, 1979, a group of Islamic students rush and take control of the American embassy in Tehran. They held 52 Americans against their will for almost 450 days. Crisis started in 79 and it didn't resolve until January 20th, 1981. In that time, the then President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, was almost incapacitated. Now, Carter was known for a number of different things. One of them, he was a micromanager, but the other one, and this is one thing that he shares in common with Joe Biden, Biden is notoriously slow about making a decision, which, given what's going on, I suppose you could make an argument is good in one sense, because at least he's, given that there's human lives in the balance, you don't want to make a rash decision, nor do you want to make one that's done quickly. I'm just saying that there is historical parallel between 1979 and 2023. You got a Democrat in the White House. You've got troubles in the Middle East. You've got our citizens killed in some cases, but in this case specifically, they're being captured and being held. You've got a lot of military hardware floating around in the Middle East that belongs to us. The Gerald R. Ford is already there. As I understand it, the Eisenhower carrier group is on its way to the Mediterranean. Again, undisclosed locations, obviously, but we know that these two strike groups are in the area. There is a palpable cry inside the U.S. to do something militarily by the usual suspects. I mean, I think I heard that. I haven't seen her say it directly, but I've heard it attributed to Nikki Haley. She wants to blow the nation of Qatar off the map. That's really helpful right now. So you've got a real powder keg of a situation on your hands, and you have a president who has all the same tendencies as another Democrat from 40 plus years ago. Now, I am hopeful, I'm prayerful that Joe Biden and the team around him make the best decisions they possibly can in the hours and the days ahead. Regardless of my disagreements with him, he is the President of the United States. He is the leader of this country right now at this time during this crisis. I am genuinely hopeful he does the right thing every time on every issue related to all of this. Don't get me wrong. I'm not letting him off the hook for the fact that he probably contributed to what we've got going on right now. Okay? Not by a long shot. We can litigate that later on down the line. And we should. But for right now, in this moment, I want him making the right decisions. So, yeah, I know. Probably is wishful thinking, Brentley. Yeah, Brentley comments over here, wishful thinking, LOL. Well, dude, you may be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I am not saying you're wrong at all. But, fingers crossed, the right decisions get made. Which kind of leads to my next topic. Whoa. The screens just went dark. Crap. Sorry about that, folks. Had a panic attack there for a second. I thought my computer just played out on me. But I want to get to something else that kind of relates to this whole situation in Israel, but it's more from a domestic angle. Okay. I want to show you some headlines. Yeah, well, and Leanne, you could be absolutely right about that. You could be absolutely right. I want to show you some headlines. And Brentley, thank you, by the way. I appreciate the kind words you just gave me over there on Rumble. Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to show you some headlines, and then I really want to dive into a question that is kind of, I won't say bugging me, but it does. Let's start with NBC News. You want an idea of what how they operate? Top secret Hamas documents show that terrorists intentionally targeted elementary schools and a youth center. Maps and documents recovered from the bodies of Hamas attackers revealed a coordinated plan to target children and take hostages inside an Israeli village near Gaza. This article is written by Anna Schechter. Documents exclusively obtained by NBC News show that Hamas created detailed plans to target elementary schools and a youth center inside the Israeli kibbutz of Kfar Saad to, quote, kill as many people as possible, seize hostages, and quickly move them into the Gaza Strip. The attack plans, which are being labeled top secret in Arabic, appear to be orders for two highly trained Hamas units to surround and infiltrate villages and target places where civilians, including children, gather. Israeli authorities are still determining the death toll in Kfar Saad. The documents were found on the bodies of Hamas terrorists by Israeli first responders and shared with NBC News. They include detailed maps and show that Hamas intended to kill or take hostage civilians and school children. Yeah, we are dealing with some really civilized human beings. Here's another one for you. This is from USA Today. An American mom, 67, spent her life advocating for Palestinian rights. Then Hamas came. Article written by Kim Jelmagard. They exchanged text messages and emojis, brief status updates with words of encouragement, a picture of beloved family dog Tootsie, until no more messages came. Then Cindy Flash, an American, and her Israeli husband, Igal, vanished into the violence, presumed kidnapped by Hamas. 4 days after Hamas attacked Israel, more than 100 Israelis and possibly dozens of foreign nationals are thought to be held captive in the Gaza Strip. At least 14 U.S. citizens have been killed, and an unknown number are still accounted for. Flash, 67, originally from St. Paul, Minnesota, was one of them. She lived in Kfar Aza, a kibbutz in southern Israel near Gaza, where some of the most harrowing and grisly stories have been emerging over the past few days. Quote, they are breaking down the safe room door, Flash said in one of her final messages to her daughter, Kieran, 34. We need someone to come by the house right now. Kieran had been communicating with her parents from a few houses away. And here they are, she and her husband. Very nice looking couple. Now, I bring up these two headlines. And Brentley, you're going right. You hang on to that. He just said over on Rumble, they're terrorists. People shocked. They're targeting civilians. Have been paying attention to the Middle East. You're absolutely right. And hang on to that question because I want to show you one last thing to really dive into what I want to get to. This is from Joel Pollack, the eminent writer at Breitbart. Among other questions, where are the Palestinians who oppose terrorism? The great shock this week, aside from the scale and brutality of the Hamas attack in Israel, was that far too many Palestinian activists in the Western world appeared to denounce it. I watched the entire Free Palestine rally on a live stream Tuesday from Dearborn, Michigan, and there was not one speaker who condemned the horrific violence, the murders, the mutilations, the kidnappings of innocent civilians, even women, children, and the elderly. The one speaker who said the word peace was heckled mercilessly. I covered the nationwide protest by Students for Justice in Palestine, who adopted as mascots the Hamas paragliders that attacked the music festival and slaughtered 260 young people no older than the student activists themselves. They call for Israel to be eliminated. They describe terrorists as resistance fighters, use the word settler to describe Israeli civilians living on sovereign territory within Israel's internationally recognized boundaries. Not one denounced the terror or the violence. Okay. Joel Pollack just set it up brilliantly. Have you noticed something going on inside the United States ever since all this got started? On college campuses everywhere, you have got protests and protests. Okay, it's college campuses. I expect protests. The funny thing is, they're not protesting Hamas. They're protesting Israel. Take a look at this. This is a headline, again, from Breitbart. Hamas massacre sparks pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel demonstrations on U.S. college campuses. Quote, Israel, go to hell. Article written by Alana Mastriana. Yeah, that Italian name. The Iranian-backed Palestinian terror group Hamas's massacre of Jews in Israel last weekend appears to have galvanized students across the U.S. Listen to the next part. Into putting on pro-Palestine, anti-Israel demonstrations on their college campuses. One student at Ohio State University even referred to the slaughtering of Jews by Hamas as a resistance movement. At UCLA, students were heard chanting Intifada, an Arabic word translated to shaking off in the Palestinian context, is understood to mean a civil uprising. Quote, these are basic human rights that the Zionists have violated, which they shouldn't have even be controlling in the first place, one protest leader clad in a kehef that covered his entire face shouted at Brooklyn College. The man then accused Israel of getting away with unspeakable war crimes just after the Jewish country suffered a massive terrorist attack by Hamas, which resulted in a mass murder of over 1,000 Israelis, as well as rape, burned bodies, reported decapitated babies, and hostages. Quote, as we speak, they are getting away with such unspeakable war crimes on the Palestinian people, the man shouted. He then called on everyone to stand with our Palestinian resistance, adding, no matter who stands in our way, if Allah the Almighty is with us, it does not matter who is against us, which elicited cheers and chants of Allah Akbar. Additional video footage in the same video showcases the crowds of apparent students chanting, Israel has to go, hey, hey, ho, ho, and we will free Palestine within our lifetime, as well as Israel, go to hell. Similar footage was found at the University of Washington, showed a large crowd of students chanting, Palestine is our demand, no peace on stolen land, and there is only one solution, Intifada revolution. Wow. You know what? That's a really good point. College students are known for protesting war in the past. Now they advocate for terrorism. Boy, have we come really far. Bonjour, Madame Gypsy. Happy solar eclipse day to you, my love. Oh, this is just, I mean, look, college campuses are always a hotbed for protest. I get that. I am not denying anyone's right to freedom of speech. I think they're stupid for what they're doing, but they've got the right to say it. But what, this is amazing to me. Let's remember how this went down. 260, hundreds of students are near the Gaza border. They're having a rave, from what I understand. They're dancing, they're listening to music. As I understand it, it was a protest for peace. And here comes a bunch of Hamas paragliders in, shooting, killing, looting, raping, burning, murdering, and pillaging. And somehow that's Israel's fault. Hamas does all the killing. Hamas does all the kidnapping. Hamas is taking people inside the Gaza Strip hostage. And it's all Israel's fault. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the Israelis are pure as the driven snow. I mean, we could probably find examples in the history of all this conflict that's gone on for now 70 or 80 years. But in this one, on this one, This one's on Hamas. Totally, this one's on Hamas. But it's somehow Israel's fault. And we got people all over college campuses in America, saying Israel can go to hell. Which sort of begs the question, why? Well, I want to read a couple of different articles, and I want to elicit your thoughts on this. Yeah, Brentley, college kids are dumb, and it is known. But it doesn't mean it doesn't shock one system for guys like me when I see that much stupid being put on display at one time. I can't disagree with you. You're right. But, it just like boggles the mind. Truly. Truly, truly. At least they're putting their multi-$100,000 educations to some use. They apparently know how to use poetry. But here's an article by Victor Davis Hanson, and it's entitled Hamas and a Moral Clarity. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to read part of this because this sets up my next author. One unexpected blowback from the medieval Hamas's barbaric murdering of hundreds of Israeli civilians and the revelation of current global amorality. More than 20 Harvard University identity politics groups pledged their support to the Hamas murderers to the utter silence for days of Harvard President Claudine Gay. Americans' new higher education practiced racist admission policies. It has long promoted racially segregated dorms and graduations, and de facto it has destroyed the First Amendment. But the overt support for Hamas killers by the diversity, equity, and inclusion crowd on a lot of campuses exposes to Americans the real moral and intellectual rot in higher education. Democrat socialist members of the new woke Democrat Party openly expressed ecstatic support for Hamas's blood work. Their biggest fear are not dead fellow Americans or hostages or the 1,000 butchered Jewish civilians. Instead, they were fearful that righteous Israeli retaliation might destroy the Hamas death machine. Palestinians for years fooled knives in Europe and the Obama and Biden administrations into sending billions into Gaza. Their money was channeled to tunnel into Israel to obtain a huge rocket arsenal and to craft plans to wipe out the Jews. Okay, that sets up the next article. And this one I'm going to read in its entirety and probably comment throughout. So, pour yourself a cup of coffee for this one because this one's going to get good. This article is written by Richard Samuelson, who is a historian and a professor of government at Hillsdale College. And the article was published at realclearpolitics.com. And this whole thing, there ain't really a bad part to it. So the whole thing is worth consideration. Headline, Why the Woke Support Hamas. And this starts getting really good as far as delving into mentality. In the wake of the barbaric attack on Israel, Samuelson writes, many Americans have been shocked, angered, and disgusted to see what woke organizations express anything other than the condemnation for Hamas. On campuses and in our communities, students and organizations like Black Lives Matter have expressed support for the butchers of the Jews. Meanwhile, on too many campuses, leaders formerly so quick to condemn even a hint of racism can barely muster even weak condemnation of such savagery. Many Americans find themselves shaking their heads in dismay. And he asks a very interesting question. Where does this blindness come from? Why are so many people who think of themselves as crusaders for justice so misguided? It's a complicated story, but one key part of that story is that the way that civil rights, which began as a cause, became an ideology. Ooh, that's an interesting observation. What does he mean? Eventually, that ideology metastasized into anti-racism, a radical legal doctrine that scholar John McWhorter suggests is nothing less than a secular religion. The once noble cause of civil rights changed No longer merely about ending specific acts of discrimination in voting, employment, and public accommodations, it became a crusade to rectify the wrongs of slavery, Jim Crow, and the lingering legacy of institutional racism. In the view of 21st century progressives, this entailed transforming America and the world. It is a reminder that even good things, if done in the wrong way or carried to excess, can turn bad. Okay, this all sounds so far to me like a discussion about America, where we are in the 21st century. How does this start getting into the question of what's going on with why some people in America are viewing Hamas the way that they do? Hang on, he's getting there. The 64 Civil Rights Act makes it illegal to discriminate on the basis against someone due to their race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. In subsequent decades, we have added more categories, notably sexuality, disability, and gender identity. Those categories are protected classes in law, but it didn't take long for the legal category to be transformed into a moral category. Certain people were regarded as having special protections. In the decades since 1964, we have created an ever expanding and ever more influential bureaucracy of DEI workers dedicated to this task. But there is a problem. Especially as the number of protected classes grow and the number of non-white Americans grow. When the 64 Civil Rights Act passed, we were roughly 88% white as a population. Today, it's roughly 60%. What to do when a member of one protected class mistreats or discriminates against another? To cite one infamous example, early civil rights activist Stokely Carmichael said that quote, the only position of women in the SNCC is prone. Graphic. So Carmichael was both a fighter against segregation and a sexist pig. When one member of a protected class discriminates against another or endorses bigotry against another, it threatens to undermine the larger framework according to which oppressors are always essentially Bull Connor. It would undermine the DEI approach to civil rights law enforcement that focuses upon the cases of individual discrimination rather than upon a large push to transform racial power disparities. That's why civil rights ideology seized upon the idea of intersectionality, the recognition that a given person might be oppressed from more than one angle. In any situation, who is to be protected? Presumably, it's the person with the most intersectional points, as if that's a rationale to organize a society. Earlier this year, progressives were shocked when the Muslim majority of city council members in Hamtramck, Michigan, banned a display of pride flags on city property. That one protected class might not be supported by another doesn't compute from their woke perspective. Yet, given mainstream Muslim doctrine regarding sexuality, no one should be surprised. In other words, listen carefully, woke progressives support Muslims not because they are Muslim, but because they are assigned to them the role of oppressed. Ending their oppression is the right side of history. They were apparently surprised to find history's complicated. And boy, ain't that the truth. Ain't that the truth. Hence, and this is where it turns right here, turning to the Hamas slaughter of Jews in Israel, the idea that Palestinians can be moral monsters is in and of itself an idea at war with woke view of progress. The reason Jews cease to be treated as minorities, that is to say, as people who can be on the wrong side of discrimination and oppression, is because Jews are doing so well in the post-Holocaust world. A parallel process is happening to Asian Americans today. As the Palestinians check off more oppression boxes than the Jews, it must be the case that Hamas and the people who voted them into power cannot be responsible for crimes against humanity, because notwithstanding all evidence to the contrary. The woke movement's larger hope is to transform America and fundamentally the world. The historical record is a sad one, full of barbarism, tragedy, and savagery. One can hardly blame people for wishing the future might be less bloody than the past. But if the tragic side of human life is due to the inevitable contradictions in the human condition, such idealism always tends to cross over into misanthropy. There is a deep moral lesson in the story of Satan being a fallen angel. If moral calculations will always be complex, And if many important political decisions will always seem tragic, the historical record is likely to remain in the future as well as its past. From the perspective of the outsider looking at the history of the Middle East, both Jews and Muslims have a claim to Jerusalem, as do Christians. But from the perspective of each, any solution that is truly satisfactory to the one will inevitably seem like surrender to many in the other group. In time, almost inevitably, any compromise will break down, perhaps violently. Such is the tragedy and dimension of politics. Almost finished. In other words, today's wokesters combine the hatred of racial discrimination with a radical desire for a utopian future, and Jews are in the way of that project. That is hardly a novel turn in history. Hitler called the Holocaust the final solution. It was, more exactly, the final solution to the Jewish question. Like today's progressives, Hitler had hoped for a better future. Quote, I believe in a conclusive understanding among peoples, which will come sooner or later. There is no point in bringing about cooperation among nations based upon permanent understanding until this Jewish fission fungus of peoples has been removed. Karl Marx said something similar in his essay on the Jewish question. Marx said that progress would not take place until the Jews stopped being Jews. The Hamas charter, expresses a similar version of the Muslim apocalypse. All would be peace, plenty, and harmony on earth if it were not for the meddling Yids. To allow religious and ethnic diversity is to allow a world in which tragic divisions and choices remain fundamental to politics, with the terrible consequence that necessarily entail. To recognize the necessity of a Jewish Israel is to reject comprehensive progress through merely human means. Rather than that, many American progressives choose to shoot the messenger, or in this case, to back those who will. That's from Richard Samuelson, an American historian. Absolutely an interesting. Hamtramck. Okay, thank you. Absolutely interesting. It brings up a valid point. We've got a real conflagration of understanding about what is discrimination, what is history, and any combination of things. And his article, and I recommend it to you. You can find it on realclearpolitics.com and take a look at it. I think it's got something to say. I mean, that last part, today's wokesters combine the hatred of racial discrimination with a radical desire for a utopian future, and the Jewish people are getting in the way. In other words, we can have a perfect world. We hate discrimination, but all of this is just meshing itself together. It's a really well put together essay, so I recommend it to you. Well, Larry the Liberal has stopped by. How you doing, brother? Good to see you as always. Even though I don't agree with you, glad you're here. So, yeah. And Leanne has switched over to Rumble because she lost YouTube. Well, okay. Thank God we're streaming in multiple places. So, yeah, I bring that for your consideration. I really do. We've been talking about it so far this morning, and it just, for me, anyway, kind of breaks the heart. Just really breaks the heart. Oh, come on, Larry. Come on. I just tagged you with a nickname. Don't get your shorts in a wad. But henceforth on my channel, you're going to be known as Larry the Liberal. You can be angry about it if you want to. So there you go. So yeah, one more headline, just for those, and this is more for those who are out there protesting on behalf of Hamas. You can defend that. Her daughter was killed at the hands of Hamas when her daughter was in Israel. So for those of you out there on college campuses protesting on behalf of Hamas, you can defend this. You can defend this. You can defend your position to the parents, the relatives, the friends, the family members of thousands of people who have died because a bunch of barbaric butchers crossed the border into Israel and started slaughtering people. You can defend that. If you can, come right ahead. Let's hear it. You know, so that's where we are, at least up to this point, as much as I could put together with what's going on in Israel with Hamas. And, you know, I'm a commentator on the news. And I try to give as much opinion as I can, tell people what I think. And I'm watching this whole thing, and I am not going to lie to you guys. For those of you who are watching, I'm scared to death, and I'm very worried because all of the elements are there for this thing to get tragically worse and to spread and to drag a lot of people and nations into something that they're where they ought not be. So, for your consideration. So there you go. Anyway, it's about, what is it now? 11:35. Yeah. The implications are truly frightening, theological or otherwise, Leanne. I agree with you. I absolutely agree. So there you go. So we're going to switch gears from the international to the domestic. And no, wait a second. Now wait a second. I can't let this one go. And I'm not going to let it go either, Larry. I'm not. I am in lockstep with right stream media. That's funny. That's funny. Let's talk about that for a minute. And Larry, normally I wouldn't address most of the stuff that comes out of your mouth that you comment on when you drop chat things in my live stream. But you know what? Okay. No, I'm not going to take that anymore. I'm not. Sir, I am an educated individual, and I have been for years. You may not like where I was educated. You may not like everything I was educated about, and you may not agree with me on everything, but you know what? I am my own free thinking person. I try to gather as much information as I possibly can. And from my perspective, talking about lockstep, no, I'm not the one with the lockstep problem. You want to figure that one out? Go look in the mirror. So now we're getting personal with it, are we? Leftists are the new 1930 European Jews, and you, sir, are a brown shirt. Well, you called me a Nazi. You called me a Nazi. Unbelievable. Wow. You know what, Larry? I don't agree with you on much. I have a feeling if you and I sat down together for adult beverages and cocktails and whatever dinner, I doubt we'd agree on much of anything. But I do believe in an old philosophy that says, you know what? I don't agree with you on a word you say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. But I'll almost guarantee you'd never give me the same privilege. I am a free thinker, sir. Contrary to what you might think, I don't agree with everybody on everything. Be it my conservative brethren, my libertarian brethren, my populist brethren, or my liberal brethren. And I don't have to prove a thing to you. I don't have to prove a thing to anybody. Let my words and my actions stand on their own. If you don't like what I happen to say, bless your heart, You are at liberty to leave. But for some reason, you keep choosing to come back. Are you trying to convert me? Are you trying to save me? What are you trying to do, Larry? I'm trying to figure this one out. And by the way, I find it funny with you. I really do. You know, you asked me to give one proof that you're a liberal. Well, I'll tell you one right now. Is attitude. Because liberals, generally speaking, love to rub people's noses in it, how much smarter they are than everyone else. And you love to throw around terms like Cambridge Analytica and somehow that, we're all lockstep, right-wing thinking people. No, sir. If you're not a liberal, and I say you are, then you most certainly have all the attitudes of one. Arrogance, condescension, moral superiority, being smarter than everybody else. No, sir, I'm sorry. You reveal what you are. And if you don't like being called that, tough. Like I said, you're welcome to be here on my channel any point you want to. You want to take a shot at the champ? Hey, I'm right in the center of the ring. You come after me. But if you think for 1 second that I'm going to back off or back up or give up, you're crazy. While I have this platform, I will say what's on my mind. I will give my opinion. And if you don't like those opinions, and you don't like where you think they may come from, get over it. Because I'm not stopping. So, Larry, there's my exchange with you for the morning. There you go. Anyway, moving on to other subjects. Let's go domestic for a second. The other big story of the week. Oh, yeah, I kind of expect all that to happen, Leanne. I kind of expect all that to happen. But anyway, let's go domestic for a little bit. The other big story that's kind of been occupying the news this week is the ongoing struggle. I find it funny, the ongoing struggle for the speakership of the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, for those who are regular watchers of my channel, I put out a video this week talking about how Steve Scalise, the current House Majority Leader, and one of the people who was trying to become Speaker, was voted by his caucus to be their nominee on the floor. Okay. Now, roughly, here's how I understand this process be working. The Republicans went into a caucus behind closed doors, had a secret ballot as to who they would nominate to become the Speaker. Then, having settled on that individual, they would then go out to the floor and from there bring the person's name into nomination and get the 218 votes it would take for that person to become Speaker of the House. Well, out of this caucus came Steve Scalise, but Scalise started to have a problem, and that's where we start our discussion of this. This is from thehill.com from a few days ago. Scalise struggling to secure GOP floor votes for speakership. Article by Emily Brooks and Michael Schnell. We read the following. Speaker-designate Steve Scalise is struggling to win support that he will need to be elected to the top spot on the House floor, signaling what could be a sequel to his predecessor's fight to win the gavel in January. Scalise scored a victory Wednesday by defeating House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan in the conference's internal vote to become GOP nominee for Speaker. But the tally of a slim 113 to 199, with a dozen votes for other or present, even after Jordan swung his support to Scalise following the vote, it was unclear if supporters would do the same. Okay. Now, I'm going to take you to another article from thehill.com. And this is just a quick list of names of people who were not supporting Scalise. Take a look at this. Boebert of Colorado, Bob Good of Virginia, Andy Klein of Georgia, Warren Davidson of Ohio, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, Tom Massey, Max Miller, Andy Ogles, Chip Roy. Now, I bring up that list of names to kind of make a point, and that is this is kind of spread out all over the ideological spectrum. I mean, we're talking people right of center, really right of center, libertarian leaning, etc. But they couldn't get behind Scalise. And I will give Scalise all the credit in the world. Guy's been in Congress, I think, since roughly 2000. So he knows what it's like to try and whip up votes. Well, that list started out at about 20 Republicans who were like, nope, I like Steve, but I can't do it. Can't vote for the guy. Well, that gets to what happens next. And I'm going to make some comments about this after I play it. This is a video that was posted on Politico.com. Okay. Let me see if I can get this pulled up real quick. Yeah, I think I can. All right, here we go. Folks, take a listen to this. This is Steve Scalise speaking himself. So here we go. At least I think this is going to play. Well, no, apparently it's not. It's not going to let me. Okay. Oh, well, fine. Basically, the upshot is this. Scalise withdrew. He couldn't get the votes, and he pulled out of the thing. Now, people are going to sit there and say, well, he knew he couldn't get the votes, he pulled out. I'm going to say something that maybe I'm giving him more credit than he deserves. I give him credit for this. Scalise, regardless of the reasons, I think in the end did the decent thing. Unlike Kevin McCarthy, who was willing to go 15 rounds to become speaker, Scalise didn't even get it to a vote. He said, look, I don't have the votes. I'm not going to do this. We're not there. So he pulled out of the thing, which sets up what happens next. And that is Jim Jordan. They went back into caucus. And according to reports, Jim Jordan wins the vote. Now, he's still short of what he needs. Still short of what he needs. But as it stands right now, he's the designee for the Republicans when they come back in on Monday. Now, as to what is really going on behind the scenes, okay, I'm going to play you a clip from Rich Barris' show called Inside the Numbers. And if you want to understand why the dynamics are taking off the way they are, I think this is a really good place to start.
We can dive into the speaker's race today. John, let me tell you about what's going on here. What happened with Steve Scalise and him bailing out.
Yep.
At least he has more.
Yep.
I don't know what to call it. I don't think it's character. I don't know what it is. But, he realized he couldn't get the votes and he jumped on it. Then immediately after, Emmer was like, I'm going to make a secret vote. And by the way, he was already running this kind of shadow campaign behind Scalise's back.
I want to stop right there for 1 second. I want to stop right there and pull up the following headline because there's some updated information related to all that. Tom Emmer, Republican from Minnesota, has pulled out of trying to become speaker. He's backing Jordan. So I want to put that update out there. Okay, let me get back to this video by Barris. Take a listen to this.
These people stab each other in the back the first chance they can get. All of this is going on. All of it is going on because the McCarthy caucus, the Rhino caucus, flatly refuses to acknowledge the possibility that MAGA has more influence in the House. Why? Money for donations. Jim Jordan cannot promise them what Emmer and Scalise can promise them, which is that McCarthy will make calls on their behalf and keep their money coming.
Okay, I want to stop right there for a second, because there is a lot to go through here. Oh, boy. There has been, for quite some time now, a war inside the Republican Party. And small time, hang on. I'm gonna get to this. I'm gonna get to this here in a minute. I saw it. I'm not ignoring it. I'm gonna get to it. There's been a war inside the Republican Party for a long time right now. And the best way I can describe it at this point, it's a war between what a lot of people right now would call establishment Republicans. McCarthy, McConnell, Paul Ryan, Tom Emmers, etc., others, okay, versus a more conservative, populist breath of air that's being blown into the Republican Party. Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Boebert, bunch of others, okay? Now, sometimes their issues align with each other, sometimes they don't. But there's some fundamental disagreements on some big things, Ukraine being one of them, national debt, etc. Kevin McCarthy, I've said it before and I'll say it again, sowed the seeds for his own political destruction back in 2022 when he was going around behind the scenes putting the knife into the back of MAGA America First Republicans, making sure his people got the nominations. And he got the majority. He got a majority in the end that got him the speakership. The problem is when he did all that, he basically gave people like Matt Gaetz, Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim Jordan, and others an oversized amount of influence in the House of Representatives, which is why, in large part, it took 15 ballots before McCarthy wound up becoming Speaker. And remember what McCarthy had to ultimately give up in order to get there. Major concessions to the populist conservative wing of the Republican caucus in the House. And they said, look, we'll give you our votes, but you have to do these things. Don't do these things, and there are consequences. Okay? One of them being, we'll bring a motion to vacate the chair. And by George, Gaetz lived up to his word. All right? So, now we have a vacated chair, and we have the establishment wing of the House GOP desperately trying to find somebody other than Jim Jordan. Now, do I think Jim Jordan is the be-all and end-all, my first choice for Speaker? Well, maybe not my first choice. I'd be happy with him. Provided he's not just talk and he actually starts putting some things into motion that need to happen. Okay? But the establishment is so desperate to find somebody else. And it basically, and what Barris is getting to, it gets down to this. There are certain members of the Republican caucus in the House, and I'm not going to name names. Barris will, I won't. They are scared to death that the gravy train stops. And what I'm getting at is this. All that campaign cash that someone like Kevin McCarthy can put into their campaign coffers dries up. That either Jordan can't do it or he won't do it on their behalf. That's why they're desperate to get anybody other than Jordan. That's why they've got to get, if not McCarthy, which McCarthy's already said flat out he's not going to do it, a McCarthy acolyte back into the Speaker's office. They've got to, some of these GOP congressmen are desperate to keep the campaign cash going. They've got to get somebody else in there other than Jim Jordan. because they're scared to death they're going to lose their seats because of him. Either by his deliberate refusal to give them campaign cash or his inability to raise it and give it to them. That's what this fight's all about. Money. Among other things, but money primarily. How desperate is the establishment wing of the House GOP? Crazy enough, I never thought I'd ever see them do this. Watch this. This is a headline from Politico. Republicans ramp up search for an escape hatch from Speaker chaos. A bipartisan solution to the GOP's leadership problem sounds far-fetched to most, but then again, so does the idea of Jim Jordan's prospect of winning next week. Centrists are signaling they're open to a deal. This is an article by Sarah Ferris, Jordan Carney, and Olivia Beavers. Democrats are outlining their terms with no speaker in sight yet. The House Republicans are ramping up their discussions as a way to reopen the chamber. Do you realize what they're saying here? You've got people like Patrick McHenry, a Republican congressman who's willing to talk to the Democrats and say, hey, can we do a deal here to get a speaker? This is crazy. Now, I will go back. Okay, now here I'm going to get into this. Can anyone pass the purity test with some of these Republican congressmen? This is ridiculous. They are put up there to effectively govern. Small time, I absolutely agree with you. They're there to govern. To me, however, this isn't necessarily a purity test. I'll disagree with you slightly, okay? To me, this isn't a purity test. To me, this is someone that's finding somebody that's representative of a view of a large number of people in the caucus. Now, is everybody going to agree with everybody 100% of the time? Absolutely not, okay? I don't expect everybody to be in lockstep 100% of the time on every issue. I want there to be debate. I want there to be give and take. I want there to be compromise, not of principle. Okay? See, I define compromise a little differently than some people. You know, you got Democrats saying, oh, these conservatives, these Republicans, they never compromise. Well, no, their definition of compromise is, you just abandon everything you believe in and you just go along with us, maybe to a smaller degree than what we would otherwise want you to, but you basically surrender your principles. That's not compromise to me. Compromise is when both sides agree in principle and they disagree on the numbers. One wants 10, the other wants 5. They compromise at 7.5. All right. That's compromise of numbers. Okay. Now, I'll also put up this comment. Gates, Boebert, and Green are jokes. I like Jordan, but he's a hardliner. That's not effective. Okay. Here's where, again, small time, and I'll slightly disagree with you. And if you're proven right, if Jordan becomes speaker and he's such a hard case that he can't get anything done, I'll come right back on here and I'll say, dude, I was wrong. Okay? I'll be the first one to say it to you. I don't know if he's as much of a hardliner as you think. And here's where I'm coming from. The interesting thing about Jim Jordan right now is, by all accounts, the conservative wing of the Republican caucus likes him. Most of the moderate wing, however you want to define that, most of the moderate wing of the House Republican caucus likes him. Okay? I'm just saying that it might be possible, even though publicly Jim Jordan acts like he doesn't want the job, he might wind up being the best man for it. He might be the guy that can get all sides together here. Now, again, if I wind up being wrong, dude, I will literally come back here and say to you, small-time Republic, I screwed up that take. I ain't too proud to do that, okay? I'm willing to keep an open mind. My reservation about Jordan, as I've said, I don't want him to just be all talk. I want him to be something, I want him to get things done, okay? And I can understand your criticism. He might be so conservative that he won't be able to get anything done. You might be right. I don't know that that's necessarily the case yet. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know, but it fascinates me. It fascinates me, and also in one sense, sort of makes me sick to my stomach that there's just enough of a handful of these money-sucking campaign leeches inside the House GOP caucus that they're so desperate to get anybody other than Freedom Caucus or populist conservative in the speakership. They're so desperate to keep anyone from getting that to happen that they're willing to deal with the Democrats to try and get a speaker. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. It is frustrating. We got a majority, and you know, this is what we got to deal with. But then again, it kind of goes to something else that I've been saying for a little while. Everybody talks about the fact that we want change in Washington, D.C. Okay? That we want change. Let me ask a question. And this is not directed at you, small time. So this is just for everybody in general. Okay? How is that change to be brought about? Okay? It's going to get messy. It's going to get ugly at times. It's going to be stuff that makes us tear our hair out, myself included, by the way. But if we're going to get change in Washington, D.C., and nobody really likes how the House of Representatives or the Senate or the White House or the federal bureaucracy is being operated, there's going to be moments just like this that are messy, they're ugly, they're public. What's it going to look like? Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with that too. You know, there's got to be a certain amount of politics involved in this. I'm not saying you're wrong. You know, and there's gonna be some horse trading. I expect that to happen. You know, I guess for me, this is where I'm at. I'm saying let's reserve judgment. Let's see who we get, and let's see how all this plays out. Let me check on the Rumble side over here. Who is my first pick for speaker? That's a good question. No, dude. I'm cool. I'm absolutely cool. No, we're fine. I'm good with you. You know, I'm absolutely good with you, small time. We're cool. We're fine. We're okay. We're absolutely fine. I like this. I like the fact this is a really interesting. It's got a lot of interesting discussion to it, so that's cool. Leanne asked the question over on Rumble, "Who's my first pick?" Ooh, man. Oh gosh. If I'll say this, Jordan ain't my first pick. I would like to see one of these youngsters take over as speaker. I wouldn't have a problem with Byron Donalds from Florida myself. I wouldn't have a problem with it. Might not have a problem with Tim Burchett out of Tennessee. That guy might be one of the only few people out there sounding the clarion call saying, "Hey man, we're $33 trillion in debt. We got to do something here." And he might actually be willing to do something about it. And Burchett's been around for a little while. So I mean, I'm not necessarily I'm locked into a person who's younger or older. So I mean, I'm kind of open on this one. I'd like to see somebody of a more conservative populist bent. And if it means losing a few House seats over it because campaign cash can't come into some of these guys or they can't raise it on their own, well, should we really have had those seats anyway? I think my thought in the matter, Leanne, to be perfectly honest with you, I think there is the potential for a governing coalition going forward that's different than anything we've ever seen before. Okay, Gypsy, I'm going to check that out. I will check that out. I'm going to check that one out. See what they've got to say. But to me, there's an interesting opportunity here for a governing coalition going forward that maybe we haven't seen either before or in a very long time. It is right there. I mean, literally, it could be right in the palm of the Republican Party's hands. A coalition of African Americans, Hispanics, lower income working whites, among with other traditional parts that have made up the Republican coalition. It's right there. And these people are more populist than they are conservative, which is one of the fascinating things to me about the support for Donald Trump. Trump can get votes from places Republicans can't. You know, I think one of the dangers for Republican Party apparatchiks is if Donald Trump wins in 2024, they're going to look at the coalitions that made up his vote and say, hey, we now have the Hispanic vote. No. Trump got the Hispanic vote. You don't have it. Hey, we got however much percentage of the African American vote. Yeah, no. Yeah, please do tweet it to me, Gypsy. You know, we the Republican Party have got this coalition. No, you don't. Trump got that coalition because they trust Trump. They don't trust the Republicans. But what I'm getting at is the potential's there. The potential's there for a new type of governing coalition going forward if the Republicans were actually smart enough to take advantage of it. You know. So I think it's an interesting time. Yeah, and Leanne, you might be right. He might be able to raise the money, but it definitely, yeah. I don't see Jordan getting a whole lot of help from anti-Trump people as far as like contributing money to the party. I'll definitely agree with you on that one. But it's about, we'll call it 5 minutes after 12. My name's Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. We are on Rumble. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter. This is what we call Front Porch Brunch, where we get together and talk about some items that are in the news. And I want to thank everybody who's here today. Gypsy, Small Time, Larry, Leanne, Brentley from Dangerous Rhetoric, which, by the way, remember, tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, Dangerous Rhetoric podcast is hosting a live stream on Rumble. So they're all, Brentley and his good friend Daniel, they're always bringing something to the table that's interesting to talk about. So by all means, please check them out tonight on Rumble at 8 o'clock. And give you another guy to take a listen to. My good buddy, Flagrant Triggers, he's hosting a live stream tonight at 7 o'clock on YouTube. And he's asked me to co-host with him. I'm going to try my best to get here to be able to do it. So if you can't get enough of me, well, here's one more chance for you. 7 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time. Cam from Flagrant Triggers and I will be co-hosting on his channel. So come check us out. So yeah, check it out. But definitely at 8 o'clock tonight, if you can, check out Dangerous Rhetoric Podcast. They'll be on Rumble, 8 p.m. Eastern. So let's shift gears now to what I call HodgePodge Stew. Some stories that I came across and they struck me interesting, and I thought, okay, not maybe on everybody's radar, but they're definitely worth discussing. Let's go to this story from Politico, which I find very interesting. A very famous name in the area of foreign policy, Dr. Henry Kissinger, has spoken. Headline: Kissinger on Hamas attacks fallout. Germany let in too many foreigners. As minority in Berlin cheer Hamas's attacks on Israel, the former top U.S. diplomat says mass immigration was, quote, a grave mistake. Headline: article reads as follows. Hamas's attack against Israel being celebrated on the streets of Berlin indicates that Germany has let in too many foreigners into the country, according to former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Quote, it was a grave mistake for us to let in so many people of different culture and religion and concepts because it creates a pressure group inside each country that does that. That's my Kissinger impersonation, by the way. So, said the 100-year-old, oh, congratulations, he made it to the century mark. Ex-top American diplomat in an interview with Axel Springer, CEO Matthias Döpfner for Germany's Welt TV. Axel Springer is Politico's parent company. German-born Kissinger, who fled Nazi Germany with his family in 1938, went on to become the architect of American foreign policy during the Vietnam War, said it was, quote, painful in response to a question about seeing Arabs in Berlin celebrating last weekend's assault on Israel. Now, I bring up this headline about Kissinger saying that Germany let in too many foreigners into the country. And I bring it up for this reason. I guess as a greater discussion about immigration policy in the United States. There's been a great debate inside Europe for a long time now about immigration, about, taking in refugees from various nations for humanitarian reasons, etc. Okay. Well, now, right or wrong, you've got a very high-profile individual saying, well, maybe we let in just too many people in some of these countries here in Europe. You think? And I guess it kind of gets me to, should we not be asking the same question for ourselves here in the United States? There's a lot of reasons why I want to see the border controlled. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a real good point. He came late to the party, but at least he finally got to it. I want to see the border controlled here in the U.S. for a lot of different reasons. Among others, national security. But one of them is a nation can take in immigrants. That's fine. But the amount of people they take in have to have time to become part of the culture of the nation in which they become a part of. Okay? I want to see people come to this country. I want to see them come here legally. I want to see them make a better lives for themselves, for their families. I have no problem with that, and I never have. And I have a feeling if you talk to most Americans, regardless of how political they may or may not be, regardless of their politics, they'd probably say the same thing in one form or another. But when it gets to the point that so many people are brought in that it's overtaking the culture of the nation that they're coming into, that's a problem. And Kissinger, and Leanne, you're absolutely right. He is 100. He's not moving too fast these days, but at least he moved there. When someone like Kissinger acknowledges, well, maybe we let too many people into some of these countries. You think? Yeah, only took him 100 years to get there. Well, just saying. Bless his heart, as we say here in the South. Well, small time may not be well received by some. Might be well received by others. I don't think you're alone in that sentiment, but I don't know if you're a majority. I love you. I'm just saying. But yeah, I saw this headline on Politico. I thought, really? Now you figured this out? Too funny. Well, not too funny, but there is one more story I want to get to, and this to me is interesting. Did you guys hear about this morning? What's going on in New Zealand? Conservatives sweep to victory in New Zealand, ousting lockdown Queen Ardern's party. Headline from Breitbart, written by, this is from Breitbart London. New Zealanders resoundingly elected a new conservative government Saturday, with incumbent Prime Minister Chris Hipkins conceding his center-left Labour Party's 6-year power was over. Hipkins, who replaced charismatic two-term leader Jacinda Ardern in January, said he was not in a position to form a government and had already congratulated Premier-in-waiting Christopher Luxon. The result tonight is not one any of us wanted, but I want you to be proud of what we accomplished over the last 6 years, Hipkins told Labour supporters in Wellington. The National Party and its coalition partner ACT were projected to win 62 seats with 85% of the vote tallied, enough to secure a majority in New Zealand's 120-seat parliament. Luxon, a former airline executive, said New Zealanders had, quote, reached for hope and voted for change. The election campaign had been dominated by an increasingly difficult economic situation and a spike in the cost of living that had hit New Zealanders hard. Okay, I bring up that headline, and first of all, congratulations to the folks in New Zealand for electing a new government, and I am hoping. I wish your nation well. I definitely didn't agree with your previous two prime ministers on a lot of their COVID lockdown policy, but you know what? You're taking a step in a direction you didn't think you wanted to go, but to now you've realized, okay, we need a change. So you know what? I congratulate you, and I wish your nation the best of luck. Now, you notice two things that are brought up in that story, and that is inflation, cost of living. Now, you would think that what's happening in New Zealand might be a precursor to what happens in the U.S. And whenever we start talking about that, we go back to our current occupant of the White House and talk about how, he's weak and he's bumbling and he makes mistakes and he talks over crazy things and falls down all over himself. I want to show you something. This is our last thing to review for the day. This is a headline from Breitbart, and it's from Alex Marlow, who's written a new book, by the way. And I'll get to that here in just a second. For the record, I have not read the book myself yet. I haven't obtained a copy of it. But I want to show you something from this article by Alana Mastranego, okay? And this goes down into the article. Alex Marlow wrote a book called Breaking Biden, exposing the hidden forces and secret money machine behind Joe Biden, his family, and his administration. Now, I want to take you this last few paragraphs right here. Alex Marlow also noted Biden's infamous and continuous gaffes are nothing new. Quote, he's always done this nutty stuff, Marlow told Kirk from Turning Point USA. He's always said crazy things. He's always had racist comments. He's always looked like he was about to fall over or pass out or get lost. He's been doing it forever. I realized, now listen to this, Biden wasn't deteriorating mentally the same way everyone else on the right just assumes he is. I still think he's deteriorating to some extent, but I realized he's always been this way, Marlow said. Marlow then issued a warning to listeners saying that Biden could, quote, he could actually win again if people aren't careful. Quote, if we don't start taking this guy seriously, if we have fallen in for a trap because he's constantly bumbling and stumbling and getting lost and he keeps winning. We can't shake this guy, and that's why the hard reset needs to take place. We need to come to terms with it. He's beating us, and we can put it to an end, and the playbook is in this book. Now, people are going to say that Alex Marlow made that comment to sell his book. Well, okay, maybe not. But Alex Marlow brings up something that it's not the first time I've heard this, by the way. Some people have been saying this for a little while now, and I think it bears repeating, particularly Miranda Devine of the New York Post. All these crazy comments and verbal gaffes and physical pratfalls, which aren't really pratfalls, he is actually falling down. People take Biden to be this, deteriorated idiot. I think he's an idiot, not because he's deteriorating necessarily, but because of his policy positions. But how much of what Biden is doing is causing people to be lulled into a trap? They think he's an easy pigeon to pluck come next year. No, he's not. Democrats may not like Joe Biden, but they'll do everything they can to defend him, if for no other reason to make sure Bad Man Orange doesn't get back in the White House. So Alex Marlow's put a fairly salient warning out there. Just saying. But anyway, that's all I've got for today for Front Porch Brunch. It's about 20 minutes after 12. I know people who like college football, you're probably wanting to get to your game, so I'm not going to hold you up for too long. As always, I want to thank you guys for being here. Every one of you that showed up. For those of you who are watching on Twitter, on Rumble, on YouTube, you guys are cool as always. You're the best audience on the internet. I'm going to be back next week with new videos, new live streams, maybe, depending if I can get a guest lined up. But week after, we're going to have Tracy from Keto and Crime. We're going to be chatting on the porch with her. And I got some things cooking right now. So just keep your eyes open, because we had some great guests this week. We had Culture Casino. We had Peter Feliciano on Thursday. Both those guys are really good. Those live streams are on my channel, so please check them out. Wonderful discussions with wonderful men, different subjects, different passions. And I like bringing that sort of thing to you guys. I started thinking about it a long time ago. I don't necessarily want my interviews to be just about the political, although they'll tend that way. But, I started thinking about it. What's the criteria by which I bring someone as a guest? Do you interest me enough that I want to find out more about you? And so far, every person that I've talked to, yeah, they're fascinating people on so many different levels. So we're going to keep bringing those kind of guests to you. But anyway, I leave you as always with the words of that famous philosopher, the legendary country singer Tom T. Hall. Just remember, folks, it's faster horses, younger lovers, older whiskey, and more money. We'll see you next week.